Good afternoon and welcome to the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization Governing Board, this fine day of March 8th, Thursday. Next, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is public comments. If you would like to do public comments, you just sign in with the speaker card and give it to Lisa over here. I have two. One is for general, and that's and I've got another one for item 7A. I'll leave that there. I have George Rosenfeld who would like to speak. And you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is George Rosenfeld. I live in Suntree. I'm an environmental scientist retired with a BS degree in forestry from the University of Massachusetts and MS from New York State College of Environmental Science and Forestry. I was employed here by RCA at the Atlantic Missile Range from 1957 to 1965 and returned here in 1986, retiring from 18 years with the U.S. Geological Survey. As I have already stated to the Indian River Lagoon Citizens Oversight Committee and hope to state it at Monday at the next County Commission meeting and at the TPO Advisory Committee meeting Monday, the County Commission is sabotaging its own efforts in recharging the Indian River Lagoon, spending the $30 million per year for 10 years that citizenry voted, that the citizenry voted to tax themselves for the effort. The first was just a few months ago when the TPO and then the County Commission approved the North Merritt Island Development Plan for the 25-acre plot for the 40-plus homes, all with septic tanks. I spoke at those meetings. The second is the recently opened portion of the Southwest Expressway. I know it has been in planning and construction for a number of years. However, I said it then and I say it again. Even the newspaper, Florida Today reporter, said it in print a couple of months ago. It will now open up the Platte family land for development, similar to how I-95 opened the Duda family land for Vieira, which is still creating development. I have a letter from economics professor Randall Holcomb, Florida State University, and also Florida State economist to the Florida government in Tallahassee. He is emphasizing that, that the taxes received from development housing does not pay for the county services rendered to that community for water, sewage, road maintenance, police, fire, ambulance, etc. He does state that commercial development does do better. I dare say that it is sacrilegious for the county to destroy the God-given Aboriginal Florida environment, so now well preserved from somewhat west of I-95 to the St. Johns River, to pave it all over with asphalt and concrete. The only ones making money are the developers. The county is losing in the long-term events. This content was later presented to the Marine Resources Council lunch meeting on February 2nd and at the Brevard Indian River Coalition meeting on February 14th. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next will be reports from committees. 4A is the Technical Advisory Committee, TAC, and Citizens Advisory Committee, CAC. Georgiana?
Yes, the Technical and Citizen Advisory Committee met on Monday, and they submit to you recommendations that are on the handout at your place. The TAC-CAC recommend the TPO approve the minutes from the February 5th, 2018 meeting. Work Order 18-02K, 2017 State of the System Report. Resolution 18-16, TIP Amendment for fiscal year 18 through 22. Resolution 18-18, the 2040 Long Range Transportation Plan Amendment, and the draft fiscal year 19 through 20 Unified Planning Work Program. I would also like to I was told that the new DOT District 5 Secretary is with us today, Mr. Mike Shannon. Mike, would you like to come up and introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Just new Secretary at D5, started in January. I've been in Florida since about 2005, resident in Seminole County. Worked for the Turnpike as a DOT since about 2011, and with a consultant before that with the Turnpike. Since I've been here in Florida, I actually was the engineer of record on the concrete job there from Fisk to 528 in Brevard County, so have done a little bit of work in Brevard County. But glad to be here and look forward to doing work with you.
All right.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Shannon. And so, you were done with your report?
Yes.
Georgiana,
with that
okay,
one.
so, Board, can I need a acknowledged receipt of the draft TAC-CAC meeting minutes of February 5th, 2018?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Mr. Allender, second by Mr. Osmer. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 4B is Georgiana.
Yes, the BIPTAC meeting minutes are in your agenda package. Sarah will be presenting on our trail program a little later in the agenda, so we'll hold the report until that time.
Thank you very much. All right, item number 5 is the consent agenda, A through D, and it's Georgiana.
There are 4 items on the consent agenda that can be passed as one motion. The first is minutes from our meeting in February. The second is committee appointment to the CAC. The third is the finance and budget report, and then the last one is approval of work order 18-02 for the 2017 State of the System report.
All right, thank you. I need a motion? Motion to. All right. You're going to do second? All right, I have a motion for approval by Ms. Moore, second by Ms. Young. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 6A is the Resolution 18-16, fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 22nd Transportation Improvement Program amendment, which is also referred to as the TIP.
Yes.
Georgiana.
All right. The DOT has requested an amendment to our adopted TIP to be consistent with the DOT's work program. The project is the proposed Phase 2 of the St. John's Heritage Parkway. This is from US 192 to the new I-95 Ellis interchange. This amendment adds $3,554,000 of SCTPO funding for the construction phase. This is county incentive grant state funding that requires a 50% match. So this amendment will add $3.5 million of SCTPO and the $3.5 million of the corresponding local match from the county for a total of $7.1 million of additional construction funding. I do want to let you know that the county is on track to move into construction later this year on this project. The DOT will be advertising the construction of the I-95 and Ellis North Interchange in July of this year, and should be under construction by September. So I think these two projects will need to be coordinated very closely, and so they will construction will be beginning later this year for both of them. So we are asking for approval of Resolution 18-16, amending the fiscal year 18 through 22 TIP via roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you, Georgiana. Any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Randalls.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question would be, Georgiana, I'm very envious of somebody getting $3.5 million. Tell me, what is CIGP, County Incentive Grant? How do you get in line?
Well, there's not a large pot of that funding. It was towards the end of last year, the county was concerned. The county had some SCTPO money on the project already and their match. The county was concerned that was not going to be enough money to actually do construction. The cost of projects are really increasing, the materials have increased, and so all of the construction estimates were going higher and higher.
Okay.
So they did contact the TPO and asked us to be on the lookout for some additional funding.
Is that man still around?
But So I contacted Jana, and Jana was able to find some additional funding to put on the project, and so we were able to keep SCTP money on it and not federalize it for the county, which was really important. That simplifies it a little bit. And so it was a really good deal, and so this is just the tip amendment to solidify that and make that happen.
Okay, I guess, Madam Chair, you need a roll call vote, so I don't need to make a motion.
Yes, you do need to make a motion.
I would move for approval of this requested action of Resolution 1816.
All right, I have a motion for approval of resolution number 18-16 by Mr. Randalls, second by Mr. Barfield. Discussion? Nope. All right, so this is going to require a roll call vote.
Allender?
Yes.
Barfield?
Yes.
Blanco?
Yes.
Forrester?
Yes.
Holton?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Lopez?
Yes.
Meehan?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Osmer?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes for the motion.
Santiago?
Yes.
And Young.
Yes.
All
Did I
right.
miss anyone? Thank you.
All right, very good. The motion passes. Item 6B, Resolution 18-17, Amendment 1 to the SCTPO 2040 Long Range Transportation Plan, which is the LRTP.
All
Georgiana.
right. This is another housekeeping item. This is our first amendment to our 2040 Long Range Transportation Plan, and the LRTP, as we call it, is updated every 5 years. So there will be times where we do need to make changes to the plan for what they call planning consistency. So on page 41 of your agenda, there are 3 projects that we're just making minor limit changes. The first one is State Road 528, the beach line. The original limits in the plan was from I-95 to State Road 524. To be consistent with the Turnpike's plan and the PD&E that they currently have underway right now, we would like to change those limits to State Road 520 in Orange County to just east of Industry Road. Number 2, that is State Road 524 from the I-95 interchange to Industry Road. That was the original limits. The PD&E study will be beginning later this year, and the limits of that will be from South Friday Road to Industry Road. So we're not talking about a big difference in length. And then number 3, Babcock Street from the St. John's Heritage Parkway, this is in the south part of the county, to Malabar Road. The PD&E has just kicked off on that project, and the new limits will be 2,100 feet south of Micco Deer Run Road to Malabar Road. So those are very minor, but they need to be very specific in our long-range plan. And then finally, on page 42 of your package, these are our bridge additions. These are 2 high-priority SIS facilities. This is critical infrastructure. Both of these bridges are on the SIS priority list. And to ensure that they qualify for state and federal grants, it's very important that we get them into our LRTP. Number 1 is the NASA Causeway Bridge replacement. If you remember, we added that to our priority list last year. The DOT is administering the PD&E, and they are working they're working with NASA with an agreement to do that. The design funding, NASA will be funding the design, and then the future construction phase, we will be pursuing an infra grant or other state or federal grant programs. And then the last one is the State Road 401 Bascule Bridge replacements out at the port. The DOT has committed to funding the PD&E phase beginning July of 2019, and design and construction will be funded either through state funding or a grant program. So it is very important that we get these 2 bridges in the plan so we can line them up for funding in the very near future. So we are requesting approval of Resolution 18-17, Amendment 1 to our Space Coast TPO 2040 LRTP, and we also need this via roll call vote as well.
All right, thank you, Georgiana.
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion for approval of Resolution 18-17 by Mr. Allender, second by Mr. Johnson. Discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms.
Yes.
Lopez.
Why the changes in the project of 528, 524, and the Prescott Street? Is it because of the lack of funding or what?
It was simply the limits to the project. For instance, State Road 524, the DOT did a corridor study last year. And in that corridor study, they kind of look at logical termini. And so when we develop the long-range plan, you know, it's basically a 5-year plan. We may not get the limits to the project exactly correct. But when the DOT goes out to study it, they're looking at logical termini, and those limits will change occasionally. And so it is important that the exact limits that we have on the tip, on our priority list, and the long-range plan all match for planning consistency, and that's important for federal highway.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lopez. Any other questions? Seeing none, I did have a motion and approval, and I need a roll call vote.
Allender,
Yes.
Barfield,
Yes.
Blanco,
Yes.
Forrester,
Yes.
Holton,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Meehan,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Osmer,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Santiago,
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Did I get everyone?
Wow.
All right, thank you, and the motion passes. Item 6C is the transmittal of the draft fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20, the Unified Planning Work Program, and Laura Carter will be reporting on that. Welcome, Ms. Carter.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm going to be presenting to you some of the draft Unified Planning Work Program and task activities that we will be undertaking for the next 2 fiscal years. The UPWP, as we call it, is one of the 3 required documents we are to provide. The LRTP and TIP are the other 2 required documents. It covers 2 fiscal years, beginning this July 1st through June 30th, 2019 is fiscal year 19, and then fiscal year 20, July 1st, 2019 through June 30th of 2020. It's going to be very brief because last month I presented the strategic plan to you, and the strategic plan is pulled from the Unified Planning Work Program, so it's the same items. So I'm going to speed through them
Okay.
in lieu of trying to save our afternoon. It's a biennial planning work program that identifies our transportation planning activities that we'll be undertaking for the next 2 years. This document includes a budget of how we will use our planning grant funds provided by Federal Highway. It is a required product, as I mentioned, and it identifies our work products and based on the state fiscal year of July to June. The development schedule is provided to us by the Florida Department of Transportation to meet the review requirements. We must have our draft published by March 15th every other year. We have at least a 30-day comment period. This year will be March 15th through April 16th, because April 15th is a Sunday. You have an extra day to do your taxes, probably. May 12th, I'll be bringing back the final document. It'll probably be under consent. Or no, we have to actually adopt a UPWP by roll call, like your other items you just did. But that will be in May, and I'll highlight any changes or recommendations or comments that I receive in the comment period. I then transmit it to DOT, Federal Highway, and Federal Transit Administration for their review, and it will go into effect on July 1st. Highlighting our 6 tasks, the first one is manage, as you mentioned, the strategic plan goal A. Our deliverables is what I'll be highlighting. We'll be executing a new executive director contract that will come to the board in July for effective date of September 1st. We will be providing quarterly financial reports, agenda packages, conducting our annual audits as required. They will also be brought to you each May on our operating budget. And then we are also, before the completion of this Unified Planning Work Program, will develop the next 2-year Unified Planning Work Program. Our next task is to monitor our system. Under this task, we will be annually collecting our traffic data and traffic volumes. We publish a report every June. The State of the System report, as you approved earlier on the consent agenda, is also under this item. Included in the State of the System report is an analysis and overview of our crash statistics, which is our safety report. Last month, we adopted our first performance measure, safety performance measures. We adopted what the FDOT is identified as their targets. We will have a few more over this next year, completing this November, all of the required performance measures included in MAP 21. We'll also conduct travel surveys and be working on our regional planning model as part of our next long-range transportation plan update. Our third task is to prioritize. Under this item, we have our Transportation Improvement Program, which we adopt every July. We'll be adopting project priorities this year in September, and each October we have legislative priorities. Task 4 is to plan. This is where our major planning documents are included. That we have our long-range transportation plan. We intend on bringing to you in July the scope of services for that. We will be, in the next couple months, bringing you a mobility plan scope of services to update the bike ped and trails projects. Expecting completion of that next September. ITS Master Plan Status Report, where we are with implementing the recommendations from that plan adopted a couple years ago. We'll be addressing this September. We are in the process of doing an ADA bus stop assessment with Space Coast Area Transit. Hope to have that completed by next February, and then we will be starting an update to our Intelligent Transportation System Master Plan next spring. Our 5th task is to implement the projects and programs identified in the plans under Task 4. Under here, you will find all of our corridor studies, the PD&E studies, design right-of-way coordination that we participate in, and construction projects. I'm not going to go through all of them. Deliverables for our engagement, our last task, is our school-based education program, which Kim provides all the education for our school students through rodeos, her walk and bike to school days, her Head Start program. We also have our community-based programs with our presentations, our outreach to law enforcement agencies and libraries, etc. We also maintain our website and increase our social media usage, and we also are providing monthly public outreach reports. One of the things I want to take note is we are required every 3 years to update our public participation plan, and that will be occurring next December of 2019. The revenues we use to fund these come from Federal Highway. They are our planning grant, and we also have our SU, Surface Transportation Program, that supplements to do the specific projects of corridor studies that the MPO manages that are included in the UPWP. And we also have our Federal Transit Administration grants. Local funds, the local match required to receive the FTA grant is provided by Brevard County, and they are currently utilizing the local option gas tax. And that is approximately around $20,000 a year. In summary, the 2 fiscal years for fiscal year 19, the total of our grants and matches is about $2.1 million. For fiscal year 20 is $1.5. The big chunk of that you see is the federal, the SU projects that fluctuate from year to year depending on the corridor studies and the master plans that we are developing. So I'll be accepting comments. I plan on getting this posted by next week, the draft, and you can mail, email, call, but all comments are due by April 16th. So today what I'm asking for is authorization to transmit the draft UPWP to the required agencies and to post it for public comment.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions for Laura? Mr. Randalls.
Madam Chair, if I ask the speaker a question, I compared that what the district has, and it's just about identical to their plan. Real close. So we obviously chose their guidelines.
Which district plan are you referring to?
Well,
Yeah.
the plan that the state wanted. I guess I'm saying it's real aggressive. Can we do it?
We've been doing it in the past. I do not see a problem doing it in the future.
I feel better.
We have very qualified staff working for you, so we should
Okay.
do our
That's
best.
right. Any other questions? All right, it was all in your packet.
Wow.
So I need a motion for approval, Mr. Randalls.
I would move for authorizing staff to transmit this there, and this is for approval of draft fiscal year 19 and 20 of the UPW work program.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Mr. Randalls, second by Mr. Alsmer. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Now to 7A, which is reports and presentations, and this is the Showcase Trails update. And this is Sarah Crum.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
So I know I get up here every month and I tell you guys a little bit about trails and kind of what's going on, but we want to take the opportunity to actually go through and give you guys a full view of the trails and the trail system. So then when I do get up here and I throw out words like coast to coast and St. John's River to sea and sun trails and all my lingo, everyone knows where I'm coming from, and hopefully you guys can also enjoy seeing what other parts of the county are doing, because I know we're long and thin, and those folks down in South Brevard don't always know what's going on up in North Brevard when it comes to trails. So I'm going to basically start off with giving you guys a little bit of history, and then kind of tell you where we currently are, and then briefly where we're going. So the Greenways and Trails Master Plan was formed in 2002, and essentially it created the original vision and framework for Brevard County as far as greenways and trails went. It was the vital document that started to push our trail system forward. And it considered various types of trails. Everyone has a different vision of what a trail is in their head. Some of us think of that 12-foot multi-use trail. Some of us think of a sidewalk. Some of us think of something in the woods where there's no pavement whatsoever. It also started establishing our showcase trail system, and this was the original map. And then in 2013, we created our bicycle and pedestrian mobility plan, which, as Laura mentioned, we're going to be updating that. And so over the years, the alignments and such have tweaked and changed based on what's possible, what's probable, funding sources, what have you. So this is our current showcase trail map, and so that's kind of what we operate on, is trying to implement our showcase trails and also our regional trails. And regional trails are trails that are basically, they cross those planning and county lines. They aren't contained within Brevard County. They're not a local trail contained within a single park or within a single municipality. They spread out. So this is our the current 2018 priority trail network created by the Greenways and Trails, their plan, which we did help to feed into that plan and provide comments and updates to our alignments of trails. And then another thing that's helping to feed into the trail system is the Fdot Sun Trails funding, which is $25 million a year, which sounds like a lot of money. But when you look at this whole trail network and that's up on this map, it doesn't go as far as you think it does. And this specific funding only goes towards these priority trails, which we're home to 3 of them. So the Sun Trails funding is separated out into 3 tiers. There's the coast to coast is 1 tier, and the coast to coast goes from Titusville all the way across to St. Pete. So there we are on the coast to coast. Now the tier 2 trail for Sun Trails funding is the St. Johns River to Sea Loop, and once again we're lucky enough to be part of it. And that's us right there. And it actually has a lot of the same alignment as the coast to coast. So North Brevard has this little loop that joins into a 5-mile loop that goes all the way up to St. Augustine and Putnam County. Here's just kind of a general map to see the overlap. And then the 3rd regional trail that we have, which is part of 10 other trails that are in the tier 3 for Sun Trails funding, is the East Coast Greenway, which goes all the way from Maine to Key West, eventually. All these are in the process. So basically we have these different trail plans and regional trails and sun trails all kind of feeding in to push our trail program forward. So our showcase trails, which are our focus, are the South Brevard Untitled Trail. It's a proposed 22 miles worth of trail. It connects into several larger trail networks, such as the Malabar Scrub Sanctuary and the Cameron Preserve. This was one of the first trails that the TPO was actually able to get built. If you have not been down there, it has this fabulous boardwalk, and it's a great walk. The Malabar and Grant Valcaria towns, they have very active trail committees that have been able to continue to work on this trail system, including getting a trailhead that originally had parking and equestrian features and a pavilion, but they recently received a grant where they were able to add ADA parking and a restroom. They also received a recreational trails program grant and have been currently working on a town connector trail, and that's expected to be finished this spring. Moving on to a different one of our showcase trails is the St. Johns River Eco Heritage Trail. This trail is never envisioned to be a paved trail. It's envisioned to basically be a mixture of unpaved trails and blueways. So as I mentioned earlier, everyone has this different vision of trails in their head. And essentially it utilizes the St. John's Water Management District conservation lands. The State Road A1A Urban Trail is over 40 miles long. It's in constant work, basically. As the different resurfacings and projects go on in A1A, the idea is to eventually create a cohesive, safe bicycle and pedestrian corridor through A1A. This provides links to transit, to employment places of employment, the beach communities, the parks, the beach out there, the different tourist aspects. Something that's also recently been added to this area is the Zagster bike share, as we mentioned last month, and, and a couple of you guys got to actually get on one of the bikes. So, so A1A is a very exciting corridor, and because it's growing, and we're being able to implement new multimodal aspects through each of those resurfacings, and it will continue to get safer and become a cohesive trail. Excuse me. The Brevard Zoo Trail has been done in 2 phases. The first one was a 1.1 mile boardwalk. I'm not sure if have any of you guys actually been out on the Zoo Trail? It's a pretty commonly utilized one. So in 2000, Brevard County Parks and Rec passed a referendum where, oh, thank you. They passed a referendum and to build phase 1. Thank you. They completed that in April 2014. It's a fabulous boardwalk, beautiful walk. And then just recently in December, they kicked off phase 2, which is 1.93 miles of boardwalk and pavement that goes all the way to Turtle Mound, and that's anticipated to be completed in winter 2019, as well as it also has a little spur to connect onto Pineda. This was funded via both state and federal dollars through Fdot and the TPO. The North Merritt Island Pioneer Trail, it connects Pine Island Conservation Area to State Road 528. There is a 1.1 mile section already there. And a feasibility study is gearing up to kick off in fiscal year 19 to look at the rest of the alignment and figure out what is feasible, what can we do. That actually, the request to put out an RFQ just passed through the county commission this past Tuesday. So the county's working on gearing up for that project, and that was a project that the TPO was able to fund. Now, because of the regional trails and such, a lot of the action has been going on up in North Brevard with the Florida East Central Regional Rail Trail. It was basically a rail corridor that was purchased in 2006 by Florida DEP, leased back to Brevard and Volusia. In 2013, there was a groundbreaking, and then we just finished opening the rest of it on February 23rd. So we just opened the last 12.8 miles of it. Just 2 weeks ago? Was that 2 weeks ago? And we had a fabulous ribbon cutting ceremony that had 150 people came out. And then the following day, we had about 450 people that participated in a community cycle event. And Mayor Johnson went about 80 miles on his bicycle. It was very impressive.
Don't believe a word.
I was there.
The truth is, he ate like 10 hot dogs. No, I'm just kidding.
We're there.
You were there.
He swears to it.
So the Brevard section is nearly complete. Is basically they were doing their final walkthrough on construction today. And the Volusia section will be complete in fall 2018. This is a very regionally significant section because it's part of all 3 of those regional trail alignments. Here's kind of a larger look at what's going on in Titusville. So we have, this report was created January 2018. I apologize, it's a little outdated. So all of the pink was what we just opened, that big section right there up top. Does this have a pointer? Oh, does it? Yeah. Okay, there we go. So all this pink just opened. This section was already completed by the city of Titusville. They have completely embraced being a trail town and actually funded a section of the rail trail. The Garden, then there you go over Garden Street overpass, which was opened 2 springs ago. Then right here we get kind of fuzzy as far as there's a lot of small little projects going on. So from Indian River to the bridge, design is supposed to kick off any day now with construction in 22. So that little orange section. The city has been working on a multi-use like cycle track, which if you drive through downtown Titusville, they kind of did like a dirty word in transportation planning where they decided to embrace this idea of a trail town and actually complete a road diet to encompass a trail through their downtown area. It's amazing what they're doing up there if you haven't had an opportunity to drive up there.
Now you can move it.
Now you trust what I say. The Brewer Causeway is currently under design. It's wrapping up design, and that will be going into construction this coming fiscal year, 19. And then finally, we have this whole yellow section is currently under a PD&E with a presentation to follow, as that's the Space Coast Trail. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, as we're going to let the Michael and Lorena, the project managers, discuss it. Thank you, Trey. So that's what's going on right now. It's very busy. I am constantly running around to different trail meetings, so it's a very exciting time to be working on trails. But where do we go from here? So we're going to continue to work on pushing our current projects forward, get them to completion. We're going to help support the local community trail initiatives, so the Grant Valk area and the Malabar Trail Committees, and Titusville has a trail committee, and basically help all those communities push their individual trail projects forward as well. Continue the regional trail coordination, because obviously these regional trails don't end at our county lines, so we need to make sure that our users are safe and it's a cohesive network. And then finally, we're going to be updating the Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Mobility Plan. Actually, I think it's going to be the Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan officially. But we're going to be updating our mobility plan. And that scope will be coming through here in April. Is that right, Laura? We scheduled it April? Yes, April. So next month we'll be kicking off the update for the Bike Ped Mobility Plan update. So that's what's going on.
Oh, very good.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah? Wow, this is fantastic. Yeah, Mr. Holt.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, because I think it relates back to a public comment that was made at the beginning of the meeting this afternoon, and that had to do with the Platte Ranch.
Yes.
And of course, that's now in your fine city, Mayor.
Yes.
Councilwoman Moore and Councilwoman Lopez, I know they annexed into your city.
Yes,
but
sir.
as a condition of when they received their land use under the county, it was under the leadership of Commissioner Nelson, Chuck Nelson, when he was a commissioner at the time, Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Fisher, that if I'm not mistaken, I believe 1,500 acres of their 5,000 acres on the west side, which immediately abuts the river, was put into an environmental easement. And part of that was for the Blueway. I'm not sure if you are aware of that, but that was something to preserve our natural resources and also to be included as part of, did you call it a Blueway?
Well, if it's like kayaking, it's a Blueway.
Part of it.
If it's part of it. The St. John's Eco Heritage Trail is both Blueway and Greenway. So Greenway would be your unpaved.
And my question actually for you would be, as you know, we're getting a new interchange down in Palm Bay, right near Micco Road. And if it's my understanding, I had spoken with a couple of the landowners. Are they going to be connecting to the Al Tuttle through that?
There's always potential. I've had like very initial conversations with people in regards to some connection with the what is it, the
buffer
FP&L
preserve?
easement.
Okay.
Is using the FP&L easement, but there's nothing firm. I mean, if you want, if that's something the city is wanting, then.
It's my understanding, because as you know, in Malabar, there's a beautiful trailhead right there.
yes.
And the goal was to connect that all the way down through the new interchange area and into this buffer preserve.
Buffer preserve.
The buffer preserve, which actually goes all the way down to the C-54. So I think that's kind of the long-term goal,
Okay.
obviously,
Yeah.
is to preserve that type of transportation.
All right, very good. All right. Yes, thank you. And I do have somebody signed up for public comments, Dale Allen from the Florida Greenway and Trails Foundation.
Yes, if I could hold till after this presentation.
He wanted to.
Oh,
the Space Coast.
sure, no problem. All right, item 7B is the Space Coast Trail PD&E. So we have here Lorena from Fdot.
Yeah, Lorena Cusick, project manager for the Fdot Space Coast Trail.
And Michael Garou
Yes.
from Kimley Horn.
Yes, correct.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. As I mentioned, my name is Michael Garou with Kimley Horn. I'm a consultant to Fdot on the Space Coast Trail PD&E study. Just here today to give an informational presentation on what we've been up to. I'm going to start off with a project background and history, talk a little bit about the alternatives that we've been looking at, and then where are we going to go from here. The Space Coast Trail, as Sarah was, she kind of highlighted a bit, is all within the federal lands encompassing the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, the Canaveral National Seashore. Both are managed. One is the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge is managed by Fish and Wildlife Service, and then Canaveral National Seashore is managed by National Park Service. But all that land is owned and maintained by NASA. So we have an east-west segment that is about 11 miles long, and it starts over at the east side of the Max Brewer Bridge, and then goes all the way to the Canaveral National Seashore to the beach. And then we also have a north-south segment that's about 16 miles long that goes from Playa Linda Beach Road all the way up to US 1 in Volusia County. The Space Coast Trail, it's not only an important trail for the community here, but also has as a trail of statewide regional significance. It's part of the Coast to Coast Trail. And also would provide a connection as part of the St. Johns River to Sea Loop. The study has been going on for several years. It started off as a feasibility study back in 2012, then continued on in 2015 and 2016 as an alternatives, a preliminary alternative study, and then to the point where we are today, where we are conducting the PD&E study. As I mentioned, the project is within those federal lands, and we've been holding monthly meetings with the agencies, with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, with the National Park Service and NASA, as well as with the Space Coast TPO staff and City of Titusville staff. So as part of the study, we're trying to get the environmental clearance from these agencies to be able to go out there and construct the trail. But we also have to consider the management plans that they are operating under. So that goes for all three of them as well. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Park Service manage the lands from an environmental standpoint, from what they've been assigned and tasked to do. NASA is looking at it from operational and security requirements that they're doing. Of course, there's a lot of activity out there today, so we have to be aware of all that and making sure that we are consistent with all their plans. As a PD&E study, we are conducting the environmental assessment to get the clearance from these federal agencies. But because the project is state funded, we are also doing what's called a state environmental impact report for DOT signature. Some of the project considerations, I mentioned the management plans, and of course that's always something that we're making sure we're consistent with, but this is a natural area, so there's a lot of wetlands out there. There's a lot of species of concerns. The project is rich in history, so there's a lot of cultural resources that that we're also considering, as well as safety. There are certain parts of the trail that will cross either State Road 406 or Playa Linda Beach Road, and certainly that interface where the trail comes in, we want to make sure that we provide a safe way for trail users to cross those roadways. Sun trail funding, of course, that's an element of this project, and I'll provide a little more information later on in the presentation. So now just getting into the alternatives. I mentioned that in the start that we have an east-west segment. So we're looking at a couple options there. One is a shared use path on a berm that will then feed into a segment that runs along the NASA Railroad. As an option to those, we're also looking at a trail just off of Playa Linda Beach Road. This is what that berm looks like today. It serves as a maintenance road for the activities out there by the agencies, and this is a representation of what it could look like once the trail is constructed. This is what the NASA Railroad looks like today. You can see the use out there. It is used as a maintenance by NASA, and this is what it could be, what it could look like once the trail is constructed. Those alternatives that I presented are the east-west segment from the start of the project up to Kennedy Parkway. But the other side of Kennedy Parkway is where we enter into the Canaveral National Seashore. And so we're looking at a couple options there today. One is utilizing the existing roadway that goes out to the beach as what's called a share segment. So it would be basically cars and bikes can share the roadway. This is a picture of the roadway just beyond the fee station out there. Another option is to utilize the NASA Railroad that continues along that section of the Canaveral National Seashore, and to pave over and improve the maintenance road out there to be utilized as a trail, and to allow that to go out, to trail users to go out to the beach from there. Along the north-south segment, the 16-mile stretch along Kennedy Parkway, we're looking at three options. This is what the roadway looks like today. One is to improve it and construct it a buffered bike lane on both sides. Another option is to construct a shared use path along either on one side or the other of Kennedy Parkway, as shown here. We're also looking at what's called an interpretive loop trail or nature trail, and there's some management roads out there that are utilized by the agencies, and there's opportunity to utilize them just to not pave them, not using asphalt, but keep them as a permeable surface, as something that people can just walk along through the area. Along the north-south segment, we have a crossing of the Haulover Canal. There's an existing Basco bridge out there today. It is one of the challenges of the project to get the trail across this bridge. The bridge is narrow, really only about 22 feet of bridge of width out there. So certainly we're working on evaluating a variety of options, potentially utilizing some kind of signal system where it would stop traffic, allow trail users to go across, and then open it back up. So those are one of the options that we're looking at for that crossing. We did hold a public meeting back in December at the City of Titusville City Hall. Generally, we had a good turnout, and there was general support. Everybody there expressed support for the project. Wanted to see the project come to fruition. The only concern that was raised was with regard to the section within the Canaveral National Seashore, the Sharo alternative. There was comments that we received expressing us wanting to see something else, wanting us to do something else out there, which is now why we're looking also at the NASA, utilizing the NASA rail corridor along that stretch. From a schedule perspective, we're right now wrapping up, we're in the process of preparing the documents. Eventually those will go for review with the agencies, and then looking to wrap up the PD&E study by December of this year. Design is currently funded for fiscal year 2022, and construction is not funded at this time. But just to go, I mentioned Sun Trail funds, and Sun Trail funds are specific to shared use non-motorized trails separated from motor vehicle traffic. So you can see some of the things that we are considering may not qualify for this kind of funding, but certainly we're trying to work within the limitations that we have and within the limitations that the agencies have in the way that they manage those lands. This is Lorena who introduced herself. She's the Fdot PM. That's her contact information. That's my contact information there. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions for Michael? All right. None? All right. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so 7C is staff report. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I go on, sorry about that. Dale Allen, Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
My name is Dale Allen. I'm currently serving as the president of the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation. The Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation is a volunteer organization that is both a not-for-profit organization, but we're also a citizen support organization to the Office of Greenways and Trails, which is in the Department of Environmental Protection. Several of the maps that you saw up here of the statewide system were developed by that office, and we cooperated in that process. I'm here today for a couple of reasons. I wanted to thank the team from Kimberly Horn for their wonderful work with Fdot on these alternate studies, but I also wanted to share with you a concern for the future of all this. I'm going to be passing around two photographs here. I'm going to circulate this one this way and this one that way. This one here is a picture of the recently opened section of the North Brevard Trail, which was just completed and opened up a couple weeks ago. My wife and I have ridden it. It's absolutely phenomenal, sensational. If you haven't been on it, you've got to find some time, take your family, your grandkids, go out there and ride this trail. That trail, within the next 18 to 24 months, is going to be connected all the way across into Volusia County to connect with the rest of the system that's coming out from DeBerry west. Probably within 2 years, Titusville is going to be connected all the way to Orlando in Central Florida. One of the questions I get asked all the time is, how many people are going to be traveling those kinds of distances and will be using this section of trail? The answer is we don't know for sure, but based upon the numbers of people using the trails in Central Florida and West Florida, it could be in the thousands, if not tens of thousands of visitors using these trails, coming to Titusville and enjoying these facilities. They're pretty unique. What I wanted to share with you is, if you in your packet, if you'll go to page 51, you'll see the coast-to-coast map, which was shown on the wall. What I want to pull your attention to at page 51, I believe, yes, is the purple piece at the very end. Titusville and Brevard County have the distinction of either being the first 10 miles or the last 10 miles of this coast-to-coast trail. Okay, and either way, you're going to be uniquely remembered. This will be Florida's first ever long-distance connected trail. There is no other trail anywhere close to this in the state of Florida. The longest trail we now have is 50 miles. When the coast-to-coast is finished, and it's getting very close to being finished, it'll be a 250-mile across-state trail, and the excitement around this is already building. We get requests every day, can we do it? When's it going to be finished? May 11th and 12th, the first ever relay run across the state of Florida will be using the completed sections of this. I think we're all going to be delightfully surprised at the numbers of people who are using this, okay? The reason I come to you today is to thank you for your leadership on this and participating in this. This is a project that we have been talking about all over Florida for 6 years, but I wanted to make you aware of two very important elements that we do not have a solution for yet. The design money for this first 10 miles of trail is nowhere in sight, and there's no construction money. There's no construction money. This other graphic that I'm going to be passing around is the Playa Linda Beach Road. And you can see on it there's a do not ride sign 2 times a day, 6 to 9 in the morning and 3 to 6 o'clock at night. If you've ever tried to walk or ride a bicycle on that road, once you go across the bridge, you'll know, and I'm told by many people out here, that the conventional name for that is the NASA Speedway. Is that correct? I think that's the name that I hear from everybody. The traffic out there is extremely fast in the mornings and evenings. There are no bike lanes or shoulders on this road, and bicycles are prohibited twice a day. This is what your visitors, when they get, if they're coming from St. Petersburg and they get to Titusville, are going to have to face in 2 years, and there's no money for design or construction for this last 9 miles. Okay? So let me pass that around while you think about this and soak it up. I wouldn't have come here today with just the problem. I like to come to presentations when I have some idea of how I can help. So I brought two things. One is this. I'm going to recommend that the city of Titusville encourage everybody that's attempting to ride those 9 miles to come to their beautiful new visitor facility, and you give them an orange shirt to wear. Okay? And on it, you say on the back of it, Titusville to Playa Linda Beach, the best 10 miles of the whole trip, we're working on it. Okay? Or the other thing is, I wanted to make you aware of something called the State Infrastructure Bank. Now, the folks from DOT probably know about this one. We had a project in North Florida that tapped into the SIB, the State Infrastructure Bank. Apparently, it is a mechanism that the state has money available for projects of high priority concern. And I'm here today to argue that the first or the last 10 miles of the Coast to Coast Trail meets that test. And there are potentially enough money in that SIB pot, if this community requests it and works with DOT to acquire, that would advance fund potentially design and construction of this project. We cannot wait for this project to be finished. We have got to figure out a way to complete this project sooner rather than later. So this in the interim.
All right.
Okay?
Your mission, Mr. Johnson.
But the whole county needs the speedway.
The paragraph you said has to go on the back of that?
Yeah. I'll work with you on the language.
I survived the last 10 miles.
Yeah, that's right.
I survived the last 10 miles. That
That's
would
right.
be another one.
That's good. That would sell.
Yeah, that would sell. So, again, it's just a note to you. I'm so excited about what you're doing here now. We've got to address this last 10-mile issue. We've got to find funding and get this thing done.
All right.
Okay?
Very good.
Has everybody seen the picture?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about.
All right.
Thank you very much,
so
ma'am.
much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Mr. Randalls.
Sir?
Dale, you got a question here.
Oh, yes, sir.
Some years ago, many years ago, I was on East Central Florida Regional
Oh,
Planning
yes, sir.
Council.
That's right.
When you brought this to us, we said, a trail across Florida?
Yeah.
And you've not given up with it. Two things that was so impressive about that, and I know I'm taking the chair's time, but the mile markers has a way of, with the GPS, of identifying somebody on the trail 30 miles from nowhere that needs help. Tell me about that again.
Well, I can't. We're not using that systematically all across the state, but Pinellas County has got something that they've worked with a private company. They have beacons on all their signs.
Okay.
That trigger cell phones, and they're key to the person's traveling cell phone to tell them what services are in the nearby area, and also give them news if something has changed, if there are changes to the alignment of the road or parts of the trail are under construction. But there's a company called Bike Path Country out of New York that is available to provide support for all these signs and all these electronic
That is
beacons.
good. I noticed the wayfaring signs are all
Yes.
identical and everything with the markers on it.
Yeah, well, this has been a great project. I mean, it's just taken off and run like crazy. And right now, the state of Florida is looking at 15 of these long-distance trails. And what's driving all this, as you folks know, is right now, Florida leads the nation in a terrible, terrible statistic. We're the #1 most dangerous state in America for bicycle and pedestrian fatalities.
We just had one Friday night in Cape Canaveral.
Well, I'll tell you, we do not want our first European visitors to come here and be injured on that Playa Linda Road.
right.
That would change the whole perception of this project around the world, and it's just too good to lose right now. So thank you for all your support on all this. I'd also like to tell you the other reason I've spent a lot of time on this. My wife, Karen, her family lives in Titusville, and I've got an uncle in Rockledge, so I come to Brevard County all the time. Please finish this trail for me.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Will do.
Thank you, Madam
All
Chair.
right, thank you. 7C is staff report. Georgiana.
Yes, the TPO will be holding an open house on the Aurora Road corridor study in coordination with the county and the city of Melbourne. And it's going to be Thursday, March 15th at 5:30 p.m. at the Wickham Park Community Center, and there's a flyer in your agenda. And just a reminder, we're going to have an executive committee meeting at 2 p.m. on April the 12th, just prior to the TPO board meeting next month.
Okay. All right, thank you, Georgiana. 7D, public participation report. Ms. Abby Henneman Way? Okay. And that's your new married name.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Madam
I'm surprised
Chair.
you're here. I mean, you know, is the honeymoon over? Or, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, board members. In front of you in your package, you will see the new public engagement report, and this looks a little bit different from what I presented in 2017, and this is due to our new structure of our strategic plan that we'll be adhering to here pretty soon. I wanted to make sure that our public engagement report moving forward kind of aligned to that new plan. And so there are 4 sections that I'll just briefly review with you today. That's school-based public involvement, community-based public involvement, digital media, and deliverables. So the first part right here on your report for school-based public involvement for the month of January, we had 4 schools that participated in the Florida Traffic and Bicycle Safety Education Program, and that is coordinated by Kim Smith, our Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Education Coordinator. For those who don't know about this program, the schools sign out a trailer of bikes and helmets for their students, and they take weeks or a week, depending on how many students they're educating, and they go through an actual curriculum of bicycle safety. We train them in it. The TPO held a training back in November for some PE teachers. We had a good group, and in March, next week, March 14th, we'll be holding a community training for law enforcement, recreation leaders, if they wanted to do a bicycle rodeo or some type of education event in the public. So for January, we had 4 schools that participated in this in the curriculum program, and I just wanted to call out specifically, we have a picture here of a student from Hoover Middle School. It's really hard to engage this age group. It's a little bit easier at the elementary age, so that's just another kudos to Kim for making sure to work with the PE teachers at all age levels. And we actually went out there that week when they were participating in the program, got some great photos, and it was a really great event to see young women participating in the bicycle education program. And then we move down to community-based public involvement. This is just a list of events that the TPO attended in support of. A few that I want to call out specifically are the Viera Means Business and 321 Millennials. These are 2 relatively new groups that we're starting to engage with. 321 Millennials is a young professional networking group, and we found it beneficial to become a part of that group to make sure that we are speaking with them about long-range planning. This is eventually going to be their transportation system, and we want their input. And I'll talk a little bit about that more when we get to the next page of the report. And then Viera Means Business, we did some event shout-outs there. Mainly we promoted our rail trail events for February, but also we want to make sure that we keep that relationship. It's a very important relationship because we have some projects coming up in Viera, so we want to make sure that we're on the same page, and it was a great networking event. And then you can see down at the bottom, some of those meetings incorporate some of those community-based public involvement events, and we supported a lot of them mainly, and then we also held our regularly scheduled meetings as well. And then if you flip to the next page, at the top, this is digital media analytics, and this is specifically for our social media outlets and also for our website. You can see that for Facebook and Twitter, we had a very large reach, and I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to our community partners. We would not have this organic reach if it was not for them, meaning we put out messages, and our law enforcement agencies, our municipalities, our community partners, the school board, they share out our messages, and it's one message, consistent, distribute everywhere. And we just can't thank them enough for their participation and support of the TPO and our messages. One new analytic that I included on this little graph is new website users, and I added this because I thought it would be good for this year to start tracking how many new visitors are coming to our website. We want to make sure that our website is not only useful on the internal end and for maybe regular users like our board members and committees, but we want to make sure that it's meeting the needs of our site visitors as well and the general public. So we're going to start tracking that, and hopefully we'll start to see a boost and an increase in our visitors on our website. And over on the side here, I included demographics. I probably won't do this for every month, but I thought it would be a good statistic to start including in the January. We had a committee member from our TAC-CAC meeting comment if we had demographics for our social media. So just to kind of review real quick, we can already see that on Facebook and Twitter, we primarily have female followers, which is very typical for Facebook, but it was an interesting statistic for Twitter. And then on YouTube, our following is primarily male. I think we can agree with all three of those, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can see that the target demographic that we're missing is under 30. So it kind of reemphasizes the importance of getting engaged with 321 millennials, engaged with the City of Melbourne, other young professional networking outlets to make sure that we're getting our messages out to those groups. And then I also included on the TPO website, I thought this was another interesting statistic to include, that we actually had 79% of our visitors on our website for the month of January were new, meaning new IP addresses were coming in. So on my end, that gets into the weeds of, well, why are we getting so many new visitors? But I think it has to do with we're trying to make an avid effort to include direct links on our newsletters, on our social media outlets to keep the website traffic up, so to speak. And then in deliverables, this just means anything that we create in-house that we're pushing out to community partners, news media, our boards, our committees. And so for the month of January, we had 2 newsletters and 2 press releases or briefs. We created the January participation report, which you're looking at right now, and we did our snapshot for 2017. If you're not receiving our newsletters or press releases, please see me afterwards, and I'll make sure that you get on that list. Below that is just a brief recap of our news features for the month. And then on the right, I just wanted to call out these 2 social media campaigns. January was the month of the Move Over Law, Florida Move Over Law, and our law enforcement agencies partner with us on pushing out that message. A lot of people don't know that it's an actual law that you need to pull over if law enforcement or utility services are behind you and they have their lights going and sirens. And then the bottom one was huge for us. We put out this dangers in school zones graphic on our social media outlets, and we asked our partners to share it. The school board shared it, which was really big, and this graphic alone and our message reached over 10,000 people. So I just wanted to call out to that once again, that it takes a village to push these messages out and to try to combat this demographic of bicycle and pedestrian safety, education, and awareness. So just a big thanks to our community.
All right, thank you, Abby. Any questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much.
you.
Very good report. Item 7E is local government report. Georgiana?
Just one thing, I heard that the Hickory Complete Street will begin construction on March 28th, and that project will run between New Haven and NASA Boulevard, and so we're very excited to see
We
how
are
that
too.
corridor is going to be transformed.
And that's in front of Holmes Regional.
Yes.
So it's in front of the hospital, so it's very important.
Very much. So that's very exciting.
Yes. All right. Next is 7F, the multimodal agencies report. Stephen Bostel.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
The Canaveral Port Authority met on February 28th. They had a great meeting. They had Dr. Dwayne DeFries from the Indian River Lagoon Council give a presentation on some of their work efforts and how they're working with the port to see how they might be able to improve the lagoon quality. We will be having staff from the Canaveral Port Authority come present their master plan that they adopted last month to this board next month in April. And so we're looking forward to that. And their next meeting will be on Thursday, March 28th. Commissioner Allen, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, Stephen, you did a good job. Fortunately, you didn't mention the heated discussions on other items that were
Yes, yeah, we read it in the paper, okay.
See, I didn't need a report on it. Everybody already knew about it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Orlando and Melbourne International Airport Board meets on the exact same day, so I was unable to attend that meeting, but Laura Carter from our office went.
She sure
and
did.
we hear that they're making great progress on the control tower and the runway resurfacings.
Yes.
And that Dunkin' Donuts is really moving along.
It's almost ready.
That's the big talk. And their next meeting is also on Wednesday, March 28th.
And we got the air show. going on.
Oh, that's right.
And that's going to be March 24th and 25th. And from what I understand, the B-2 Seth Bomber will be there on a Saturday, is what I found out. So sign up and get your tickets.
Fantastic. And then Space Florida, their next board meeting is on March 14th in West Palm Beach. And we have seen lots of launches lately. And it's been very exciting. And
Very.
that's all I have for today.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Steve? All right, thank you. Regional 7G, the Regional Coordination Report, Georgiana.
I think I should give a quick update on House Bill 1287 as it relates to the operations of the MPO. Carl McKiska, the MPOAC Executive Director, he's been doing a really good job keeping everyone informed on what's going on almost daily.
Yes.
The three provisions that we were really concerned about was, one, the provision to limit each municipality to one MPO member. That's out, so we don't have to worry about that, but that would have affected Palm Bay, Melbourne, and Titusville. MPOs below 500,000 population would be limited to no more than 11 voting members. Thankfully, this does not apply to us, and at your place, there is a map that Carl provided to us, which basically shows the Palm Bay, Melbourne urbanized area, 452,791, and then if you add the Titusville urbanized area, 54,000, we are just over the 500,000 mark. And so that was very close. We don't have to worry about that. That brings it to 507,177 in population. But that could have really affected us. The provision that sets term limits of 12 years to MPO board members, that could be a problem for us in the future. We have members that have served on this board for many years, traditionally. So, members become familiar, they understand the overall transportation planning process and funding, and so you lose that institutional knowledge. So that's not good. But this morning, the Senate is loading up the bill with lots of amendments, including the board member cap for MPOs below 500,000 population, and the prohibition on weighted voting. That doesn't affect us, but it does affect some MPOs. The term limits would have to stay in the bill. So, of course, that has to go back to the House for a vote. So it sounds like there's lots more to come. For those of you that have reached out to your representatives and the senators, we really do appreciate that. It looks like we're going to be okay, but there are some MPOs, even in this district, that would really affect.
Yeah, so.
I didn't know about that this morning.
There's a lot of things going on, trying to.
Yeah, things are changing.
Yeah.
Changing daily.
Last week they had anything.
And it's today, too, because I'm getting emails and reaching out to our, Brevard delegation. So, and you still got to keep up with it. All right, so we'll look at that then.
We will keep you posted.
Yeah. 7H is the Florida Department of Transportation report, and that's Miss Jana Taylor. And welcome from DOT.
Good afternoon. I have no new updates. You met our new secretary today, and the attached is the active construction report. And you can always check CFL Roads for any updates within your areas also. Does anybody have any questions or anything for me?
All right.
No?
So, Mr. Randall, do you have any questions? I mean, it looked like he was ready.
The overpass between Canaveral Port Authority and me, the 6-week job has taken several months. What's the hole in the middle of the road?
The hole in the middle of the road?
I can have you know.
Oh.
In the middle of the road.
My name is Mo Hassan. I'm the Brevard Operations Engineer for the DOT. I'm in charge of all the construction and maintenance of the state roads in the county here. And we have
We've been trying to slow speed down. I didn't know if that was...
We were resurfacing in that area, and then we had a hole open up.
Just a hole?
A hole opened up. It's not a sinkhole, it's just a hole opened up. And we did the investigations, and it looks like we have a drainage pipe underneath the road that's opened, and we have some leaking into it. So we're planning on fixing it, and we should be in 3 weeks. The entire project should be done.
We've been trying to cut the sewer off from the port for years. Maybe that's what we need.
But yeah. So in 3 weeks, the entire project should be done.
That's right. All right.
I'm glad you're here because I didn't know what the hole was.
That's what it is.
I still don't know.
Well, it's just a hole that it's like a sink. You know how a sinkhole forms?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a pipe underneath. The pipe itself, we have the soil on top of it. So if you have a crack or an opening in the pipe itself, what happened here is probably we had a joint that moved. So we have a gap. So the soil will find its way into the pipe. So you lose the fines into the pipe, and that creates the cavity. With all the construction work that was happening and the vibration, that activates it. It's kind of like an hourglass. When you flip it, the sand just goes down.
Okay.
So that's what's happening. So you end up, it keeps going until the surface or the pavement cannot support the load, and it just opens up. So that's what we have there. We're just going to have to come back and fix it and put the pavement back.
Tell your boss he done good by sending you. You didn't waste any time here. I mean,
all right.
All right. Very good. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Our next meeting is going to be next month, April 12th, at 3 o'clock here, same place, same channel. Any other comments or concerns? Mr. Forster?
Yeah, I just, re-looking at these pictures of the trails up in the Play Linda area, and I just want to make one comment about it, and that is, I'm going to have a real hard time supporting any of those alternatives that include a shared roadway or the buffer lanes, I think. I think in that area up there, if people are up there riding their bikes or hiking, they're going to be distracted. It's hard not to be in that neighborhood, so I would really like our consultants and people to look at one of the alternatives that does not involve sharing a roadway or having a narrow buffered lane along the side of the road.
Okay.
Just, I'll let them know up front, I'm not going to support that if it comes to me.
Okay. All right. Any other? Yeah, Mr. Holton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last TPO meeting, as you know, I updated you on the texting bill.
Yes.
And I just wanted to give you another quick update. It doesn't look very good, this legislative session, even though it had so much momentum.
Yeah.
It did pass the House on the floor 112 to 2. That's HB 33. But in the Senate, even though it's passed every committee up to appropriations, the appropriations chairman, Chairman Bradley, will not hear the bill as of when I walked into this meeting. What I would encourage anyone out there who's watching this or has an interest in this bill, I know it's one of our legislative priorities as a TPO, is that you may want to contact Senator or Madam Chair Benequisto. She's the Rules Chair, and so what they can do in the Senate is procedurally they can pull it out of committee onto the floor if the Rules Chair would allow that to happen. So you may want to contact either Chairman Bradley or Madam Chair Benequisto and ask them to allow it to go to the floor and so they can vote on it.
Okay. That sounds good.
And that's HB 33 and SB 90.
Okay. Very good. Thanks for the update, because I wasn't keeping track of that. I was got other bills out there. Okay. So any other comments? Seeing none, I will go ahead and adjourn at 4:19. Thank you very much.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.